So first, I'd love for you to just sort of introduce Nonpoint, share a little bit about like how long the band has been around, and just sort of give us like a little bit of insight into sort of what you see as your band's focus, mission in this world.
Well, I'm Elias Soriano. I'm vocalist for Nonpoint. Nonpoint is a very eclectic kind of mishmash sound of hip hop, rock, metal, hardcore, soul, R&B, all mashed up into one. We've been around since I joined the band in '97, and we've been doing this ever since, nonstop. I would say our mantra, mission is I say more message and substance than sometimes the surface really gives way to or gives notice to. I think when people dig in deeper to the lyrics, to the community around us, I think they realize exactly what this band is, which is really for our fans. We really like to be there for them in every aspect.
So you're kind of like in this new era of sharing music with fans with Is It? It's like your new single, and you're headed out on a tour. What can you share about sort of this season of the band that was sort of like behind the writing of Is It? Like what has been happening for you all in your lives that has been really feeding into your songwriting and creative process right now?
Well, coming out of the pandemic, we went into our independence, and then I think the pandemic shifted the industry, and really, I would say, almost streamlined it a bit. It shed a bit of its dead weight, but it lost a bit of its base level connection with the fans. And I think once, surprisingly, things like TikTok and Discovery started to shift out of the hands of industry gatekeepers and started to slip back into the hands of actual listeners. I think that's where the power of independence started to grow, and our entire business model started to shift. When that starts to happen, then your creative vehicle becomes way more important, and it becomes more precious because now you're fully in control. So I think our journey right now is we have full grip of the reins, and we've weeded through a lot of the ifs that come when you're a part of the bigger major label machine or the bigger distro teams. We've gone the gambit from label teams and fully independent, self-managed, managed, no agent, and I think now more than ever we have an understanding of what our path is exactly and what it's supposed to be. So when it comes to making decisions and sadly having regret from making a decision where it may not be so right and wrong, it just is, we're either going to be handed this or we're going to be handed this. I think through the last 3.5-4 years of us being independent, we're more comfortable with the ebb and the flow of things, and that's what Is It kind of touches on. Is it right or wrong, or is it just this or that? So we're dealing with more of this or that, and shout out to Black Sheep. Who's the Black Sheep? What's this or that? This, okay. But we're leaning more on what the music is guiding us and telling us to do, as opposed to and our hearts, as opposed to a lot of what the industry is more traditionally used to seeing from bands like us.
Yeah. So with the lyrics of Is It being more heart-led, like what are phrases in the lyrics that really stand out to you as being really representative of the song and its substance and its core? Like what really captures the theme for you?
I don't know. The lyric, the chorus. Is it the color? Is it the place? Is it the frame? Is it the face? It's. I'm touching on color for a reason. It's definitely a double entendre, because when people think of Nonpoint, they certainly think of color, because over the last 5 years of our career, we splash our stages with bright colors. So, but it also has to do with the fact that I'm a person of color up there. So is it the color? Is it the place? I play so many different places in America and all over the world, and it's different everywhere. People's opinions, people's life paths, people's directions, the overall community feeling. Is it the frame? Whether it be female, whether it be male, whether it be the structure of gender, no one knows. Is it the world that I'm to blame for? So are all of my decisions creating this, environment around me? And is it just another reason for me to be justified to be so out of control? Because you start giving up, mentally, and saying, well, if this is the hand I'm being dealt, am I just going to play along? And what environment is that going to create around me? And that's basically where that song kind of sits.
So what do you really want people to walk away from a song like that with? Like with that sort of like really intense sort of nuance.
To control yourself. To control yourself. To learn how to control your words. To learn how to control your emotions. So it's putting people on blast. It's a song about self-awareness, that people need to become more self-aware. From washing your hands in a public bathroom. Wipe the fucking sink, bro. You just made a mess. Flush the goddamn toilet. You didn't hear a flush behind you. Put your foot up there and kick the thing. It's simple stuff like that. You see somebody, an elderly lady walking towards a door, she's gonna have trouble with you. If you could take 20 fucking seconds and stand at the door so she can have an easier day, she's got less days in front of her than she has, behind her. So you got more. It's that balance that I feel like will start making the environments around us a little bit more less regrettable.
Yeah. How have you seen that dynamic of like just fucking take care of yourselves and each other play out in your own fan base? Like what is your experience in the music community? Where do you see it being really positive?
That it's finally even the most conservative and the most liberal are starting to not be able to deny the facts. And I think that the pendulum swinging as hard as it's been swinging in the world from left to right, it started, and it right now it's hitting both sides pretty fucking hard. And my brother, who's ex EOD, ex Navy SEAL, worked for the government, worked for Secret Service, when you start to see concern and worry at those levels, and you see like humanity starting to step up, that's when you know that it's going to start to bring itself in a little bit more. And I feel like that it's people are tired of being duped, and they're starting to make moves, and I'm starting to become less and less worried about humanity.
So for you personally, just kind of to wrap this up, what has been helpful for you in learning sort of that like self-awareness, self-mastery, control?
Being a dad. Being a dad. I'd say being a dad. Raising a little girl is I have a 14-year-old daughter. She's about to turn 15. And, I see myself in her a lot. Being a kid who, though I grew up in a relatively tough neighborhood, I went to Dillard High School. My stepfather was the only Caucasian man within an 11-mile radius, and I went to a school where Latinos were only like 2% of the population, where whites, Asians, and Latinos were only 2% of the population. So I was too light to fit in. And then I went out into the world, and I was too dark to fit in. So it's that watching my daughter deal with being a mixed raced child and her not having an identity and trying to explain herself to other kids of having curly hair like you but blue eyes and almost blonde hair, but she's Puerto Rican Dominican, but she doesn't speak Spanish, and it's like that. There's so much disconnect from identity. It's almost like a European rock festival where there's pop acts, there's reggae acts, there's punk acts, there's so many blurred lines now that I think that's starting to happen to culture and generations, and where people had such roots and so much pride in their local identities and their local cultures, it slipped away from that so much because people were so proud of identity and culture that it became a battle. And I think it went from being a battle to these blurred lines. Now it's in a celebratory state where people like Bad Bunny can like bring the Latin community like up and out of this like feeling of just being just fucking worked over the last 40 years, 50 years, from Puerto Ricans to Hawaiians to Mexicans to, Dominicans and Haitians and, all these people in the Caribbean and along the Yucatan Peninsula that just want to be happy and are dealing with a lot of judgment and a lot of policy. And I feel like, the lines being blurred culturally are starting to help policy start leaning in the right direction.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for like digging into like some of the actual again, like you're saying, beneath the surface. Like
I never get to talk about this stuff.
Like
honestly,
that's what we're all about.
I think people need to read deeper into lyrics, and I think people will understand. We're out here talking for you guys. It may not seem like it with songs like Bullet with a Name and Million Watts, but I mean, even a song like Bullet with a Name, that song rings right now. You see everybody's watching, passing judgments on every little move and decision I make. How can I be an individual with the weight of the world and 8 other planets to take? And with everything happening, gunshots clapping, people all running in every direction with their hands up, waiting for the drama to end, I got my hand out looking for some money to spend. That's the first verse of the song. It's been happening my whole life, and it's only happening because of the lines that we've all drawn. It's not happening because of time. We're just decorating time with this music. We need to now start moving in time and start making the change happen.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like that's why bands like you are so needed. So I'd love for you to sort of wrap up by just sharing what you have coming, like after Is It? Like what's coming this year?
It just dropped at midnight, so go at it, stream it now. We have a tour coming up this summer with Soil, Head PE, Spine Shank, and Primer. Soil's going to be on the back end, but the other boys are going to be on the front end. We're going back to South America. We're heading back to Australia and to the UK and Europe. So a lot of overseas travel. You'll see us overseas quite a bit.
Well, we're going to share about all of that and
I
put
hope
it in
so.
the interview. Thank you again so much for trusting us with like a deeper conversation. I know there's like vulnerability
Thank you for
in that.
listening.
So
Thank you
yeah.
for listening. I'm glad you guys are asking these questions. 'Cause they matter.
Anytime. Like, no, this is what music should be about. So,
Absolutely. I
it's
wish
an
there were
honor.
more interviews like this.
Well,
I'm not going to forget this interview.
it's an honor. So thank you.
No doubt.